presentation. I'm so nervous right now. Okay, let me share my screen. I don't think my screen is visible yet. And it is now. Okay. So yes. So I'm going to be talking about which is better to code by contract, TDD or API first. Don't get angry at me. I know everybody here is like TDD fans, which of course I am too. So yes, but let's find out what that is. But before I talk about, I know, like, thank you, Dave, for the introduction. I think you just said everything that I had asked you to about me. But so yeah, I'm a developer advocate at Postman. My day job usually is building a lot of content, contributing to open source Postman, helping out the community, and looking for opportunities such as conferences so that I can meet more people and talk about APIs and uh, tooling and specifications and get feedback on Postman, the product, which is an API platform, so that I can take it back to the engineering teams and just improve the overall developer experience. Besides, I'm currently learning Spanish, so I want to say to myself, buena suerte, which means good luck to me, especially because I'm following like after GPO and James, so it's a lot of responsibility. So just bear with me. So what are we going to cover today or tonight? It's actually night in India, but yeah, I hope I don't sleep through my talk. But yes, so we're going to talk about firstly, if, we have to actually compare what is better to code by contract. We'll talk about what exactly coding by contract means, how to apply code by contract in like while developing software, overview of test-driven development, though I will not spend as much time on it considering the previous talks have very well explained a lot of details about that. Next, we'll go on to understanding what the API-first approach to software development is, and then we will talk about TDD versus API-first. Cake by contract. This isn't a typo. So it's a little over 10 p.m. here in India, and it's post dinner. So dessert is definitely on my mind. And with that, I'm just going to use the analogy of a cake to talk about code, which isn't very new. I think a lot of us compare like cooking with coding. So that's my analogy. So, but that doesn't seem like a cake. What that is so there's this show that I watch a lot. It's called Fabulous Cakes. It comes on TLC. And one of the episodes, there was this client which comes to like the Sweet Design Cakes. It's a bakery, and he wants to get a cake for his sister's birthday party. So the initial interaction of the team is they ask questions about his sister Tiffany and about her personality, what she likes. So this is the requirement gathering phase where they actually decide upon like what creature or what is the design of the cake that they want to build for Tiffany's birthday, and how big or like how many people are attending the party. So it's all to understand how the user, in this case, the client is like the people who are going to eat the cake, Tiffany mainly, like she's the main stakeholder here. And based on a lot of those things, they come up with this blueprint of the cake, which is a dragon cake. And let me tell you, I'm going to send the link to this episode in the chat. It's a 3 feet long cake. This is one of my favorite shows to watch. So this blueprint is essentially the contract that they agree upon. Like, this is how the cake is going to be. And now, in order to come up with the cake, they need to build the cake, right? So the development phase is where they actually build the cake. Since it's a 3 feet long cake, they break it up into different parts. So let's say the base of the dragon's body, and then the middle part is its hands, and the top its face. So all of these are separate parts, and each one of the team members, they have divided this into each part. Each part has its own dimensions, or how wide each part should be. Because if they don't decide on something like that, like if they don't decide on the specification of each of these parts, it's going to be very difficult to integrate the cake, and the cake is going to fall. Tiffany doesn't want a fallen dragon. Tiffany wants the dragon to stand and the dragon to be tasty. And I sound hungry. But so we spoke about the blueprint, the first one. That's the contract that they've agreed upon with Tiffany's brother, and this is what's going to be delivered. And each of these pieces that make up the dragon, I am thinking in software terms as like the architecture of the entire app. So let's say each of these pieces is like a microservice, and they have to come together to build the entire app. And each of these pieces, if they don't have their own contracts, then it's very difficult for the entire piece, like the entire app, to come together. So I want to focus mainly on, like, we always call like contract as like the external, like the main blueprint, that's the contract, right? But I also want to focus upon the contract that these internal pieces have, so that you can build the entire cake, or you can build the entire dragon. And yes, so all of those pieces come together. The sweet design cakes team does a very good job, and finally they're able to build the dragon, which is building the entire app for us. Like if it's a web app that I'm building on, a lot of microservices come together probably, and then we build the entire app. Just the difference between the cake and probably our code is that this one is just left to right. So it starts with the dragon and you actually make the cake. But then okay, so the comments are distracting me. But yeah, but in case of software development, it will be iterative, it will be a cycle. I think probably the cake is in a cycle, like all of the stuff there is perishable. So, but in case of software, like we will build the software applications, we'll again go back, add features, fix stuff, and then this process is going to continue. But we spoke about contracts, so I've picked up the easiest definition that I could find on the internet about what a contract is. And it's a decision or arrangement between groups of people. So if the sweet design cake team hadn't decided on a contract, it would be very difficult to collaborate on the different parts of the cake to have the cake stand and to be able to integrate that, which is why we should code by contract. So the first thing that happened throughout the process is that when you think from the perspective of just the contract and not exactly about the implementation, like not fretting about the implementation in advance, not over engineering the way that we're used to, just thinking about what needs to be built. That is what happens when you try to have the contract first in place, and then you go about building the how you're supposed to build the thing. Good design, because now I'm thinking of all the stakeholders that are involved while building the contract. Even while building each of those pieces, right? The client of like the bottom piece is probably the top piece. So similarly, the client for say an order management service is maybe a billing service or a customer service. So I need to keep in mind all of these stakeholders. Stakeholders can be people, they can be different services, or they can be libraries that are going to use my code. So I need to account for them as well. And when I'm doing that, the design is actually from the perspective of the user or how the person would use, which greatly improves the design. better collaboration. The team was able to break the cake up into different layers, different pieces, and each one of them independently could do their work. They can collaborate. I think the contract was not set in stone. So, for example, let's say the bottom piece actually becomes way larger than it's supposed to be. They can have a communication about how they want to do the top pieces, and then they want to build the cake. But it's possible that's because each of them have agreed to follow like a certain contract and the way that it needs to be built. Predictable integration. Now that the contract is in place, all of them know that what piece is going to come on top of each other. So it's going to be pretty easy to integrate the entire thing. How do I apply code by contract? So again, I tried to pick up a couple of words on the internet which seemed like they do not have a definition. So I just want to use an umbrella term, essentially just to focus on practices that focus on the what part of it and not the how part of it. They focus on the API, the contract, the specification, so that you can abstract out the implementation. So test-driven development, TDD, that's one of the practices which focuses on the what. API-first development, something that we're going to talk about in detail in the upcoming slides. Behavior-driven development is essentially in fact, I used BDD when I used this tool called Cucumber to write functional tests, where it uses this language called Gherkin, which allows you to specify the behavior. But that, again, is inspired by TDD and essentially for you to focus on the behavior and the specification rather than the implementation. Design by contract. This is something that I actually found out while researching for this particular talk. And it is a software correctness methodology. It has preconditions, postconditions. But basically, this is a term which is coined by Bertrand Meyer, and it's implemented in the Eiffel language. So the contracts are actually part of the language. Like TDD, we do it as a practice, but this, like the language has these preconditions, postconditions. It isn't as popular. It had a couple of things with it, but yeah, I just listed it because it was still part of like the entire umbrella of code by contract. So test-driven development. And I am a fan of Martin Fowler, Ken Beck, and I think every one of those course signatories, and that's why it's so much pressure just talking after James. But Martin Fowler, who's also the chief scientist of ThoughtWorks, apart from being an author for a lot of books, and I really follow his blog. But he describes test-driven development as a technique for building software that guides software development by writing tests. And it was actually coined by Kent Beck as part of extreme programming. So I want to draw your attention to specifically the first part of the definition, which says for building software that guides software development by writing tests. So writing tests is actually how you implement, how you do the TDD, but the main focus area is why we're doing it is to build software that guides software development. So, and why I'm drawing so much attention to this, and one of the reasons why I put this under the code by contract is because a lot of times TDD is just thought of as a technique to increase your code coverage, and maybe the focus goes more on tests rather than the word driven. And it's important because I feel as a programmer as well, just thinking in terms of small incremental steps, but also writing the first test makes me focus on not the implementation, but what exactly I want this class to do, what I want the method to do, and focus on what is the API that this class should have, what's the contract that should be exposed. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that. And the driven keyword is actually a keyword here, very important. But yes, but a lot of attention goes to just the test part of it. So yeah, I just wanted to call out how important it is that it guides software development, that you drive your code through it. How you do it is the red-green refactor cycle. So you write the failing test just enough to make it pass, and then Once it passes, if there's code smells that you see via code, you refactor and that cycle goes on. How it's beneficial, again, not going into the depths of this because I think a lot of speakers before me covered it in really great detail and so much better. So incrementally, it helps you to incrementally build, like Jeepo said, take more smaller steps. So it allows me to not get into like the over engineering mode, which allows me to build really big things like the cake, the 3 feet cake. They built it because they made like small parts working. So self-testing code, because there is no code without the test written for them. So those tests serve as documentation, and there's enough confidence in the code that we're writing. Better design again because it helps you to think about the interface that you're exposing first and then write implementation for it. Next up, API first development, and this is something that I want to spend a little more time on. So Kin Lane, he also goes by API evangelist, and he's the chief evangelist at Postman. He describes API first development as a philosophy and a way of life that involves beginning every software capability as an API before you even begin developing a user interface or any other element. So each of the software components are first well-designed API interfaces, and those can be reused across many applications and systems. Now that I'm done reading his code, I want to just dive into how to do API first development, because I think a lot of awareness, at least in the attendees, is for TDD, which is great, but I just want to introduce API first and how it is different and similar, and also because that's the topic of the talk. So what I'm going to do is, let me move over to, yes, let me move over to Postman, because that's what I keep using in all my talks. So any of y'all watching can try this out and share feedback about, I'm going to paste this on the chat. Yes. My day job is to get feedback on Postman, so I am definitely going to use the conference to do that. But what we're looking at right now is a Postman public workspace. So you don't need an account, but you can just visit the link and you can check all of this out. It has a link to everything that I'm using. But besides that, what I want to get your attention to is, yes, is so under the API tab, right? I created this API called Cakes API. Okay, so why did I create the Cakes API first? So let's say I'm building some software which, this is a web app and it has like a gallery of all the cakes that the bakery has, and you'll be able to place order, buy a cake and all that. So I made a cake API for starters, and this is what you would do if you were to do typical test, a typical API first. So you would have the API first, you would define the API, and we're going to use a specific format which is called as Open API to define the REST API. It's a specification. Once we have the definition, once we define the API, there is a lot of tooling that's available. So you'll easily, at the click of a button, be able to create a mock server, free the other teams to work on stuff that they built on top of the API, create documentation, and people can start testing the contract of the API, like the testing folks can start doing that. Somebody who's supposed to build UI on top of it is free to at least start building UI, because a mock server will be generated out of it. But so coming to the definition of the API, so this uses the Open API 3 format, and this is the definition of the API. So you can see there is like a get and post request, and we define each of like what will be returned. This is the schema. This is JSON schema that we're using inside here. It's an array. It returns a list of items, which is like each cake, because the get request returns cake. So what happens as a result of defining the API first is that is that emphasis is laid on what the API wants to expose. So if I am like, when I do the post request, I will have to take into account who is going to be using this service. Is the order management, like, will this API be used to also post to create an order? So then I need to be able to build this cake API in such a way that it accepts all of the details that are required to create an order for a cake. And there are a lot of questions that you have to answer while defining the API. So again, this is a focus on the specification of the contract that is exposed. At this point of time, we're not thinking about the implementation and how it will be built, but just from a user perspective of, like, take into account all of the stakeholders and see how the API is going to be used. Once you lock on, not lock, you could do this incrementally, but once you have the specification set, once you have the API definition, then you can move on to actually developing code for it. So one great thing about using these specifications, so there's OpenAPI, Async API, and there are a couple of specifications, but OpenAPI is really popular for REST APIs. One benefit of doing that is you can just quickly generate a mock server. So I can just create a mock server out of the Cakes API, and I will be able to hit that API and expect like random example responses from the API that come up. There is a lot of tooling in the sense that you could also derive documentation from the API definition, and you could also start writing tests. So I'm actually going to go to the collection. So what I've done here is I have this collection that I did generate from the Open API, and this has the entire API definition that I'm using. What I did is I made a fork of this collection. So it's possible to create a fork just like GitHub and actually have version control and even contribute and raise PRs against collection. But essentially, I'm just using the fork so that I can use each of these collections for different purposes. So I made a fork out of it. I created a collection which serves as the mock server. So this points to a base URL which is generated when the mock server is created. And this mock server is created based on the OpenAPI specification that we saw, the first thing that we defined. So anybody else who wants to start building on top of this is free to do that. And this mock server returns random responses based on the definition. So I said a string and I said a number, and that's what it returns. So yeah, I could modify the response, and based on like the status code that I expect, I could get that. But there is tooling in the sense there's a mock server that you could create at the click of a button. And there is also visualization that you could do in addition to writing some contract tests. Because now that we've locked the contract, the testing team can actually go ahead and start writing contract tests for the APIs. And when it's built, they can check and see whether it's validated or it's following the contract or no. So the schema is valid. Let me go back to the presentation. Yes. So what I wanted to do is we saw how to API first. Like you come up with the definition, you define the define the API, all of the parameters, all of the responses, and based on that, you build. Like you capitalize on the extensive tooling that's available, and you use the mock server, or you start building the API. Once you have the definition locked, you know what you want to build, you know what the API is supposed to do, and that's how you do it. Now that we have taken a look at both the approaches to do certain things, let's just put them left and right, and let's just do a quick comparison. So what TDD allows us is when we have the tests in place already, we can get faster feedback. If we add something, we remove something, we change something, a test fails, the CI pipeline fails, we get faster feedback. API first is earlier validation because we're now getting all of the different stakeholders in one place. We're validating the contract. We're like, this is what it's going to do. If you want to try it out, you try it out with a mock server and you see whether it makes sense to how you're supposed to use the API. So we're getting earlier validation instead of like building it later and then figuring out what went wrong. Emphasis of interface over implementation. Both of these approaches are still under the big umbrella of focusing on the what part, focusing on the contract. So there is emphasis on the interface over the implementation. And API first also is like emphasis on the specification, which is all again same terms. Easier onboarding. When we have like I've been part of teams where we've done test-driven development for like really large code bases. And sometimes when I joined a new project, it is extremely easy compared to if I had to read the code and figure out what it does. Just looking at the tests, because those tests serve as documentation. So it's faster onboarding because of that for a new person who joins the team. For APIs as well, when I joined Postman, at Postman, we follow API first. So all of those microservices actually have specifications. So I just go, I just look at what a service does. I just see what all it exposes, and I know what the service is useful for. TDD, in addition, increases code quality, maintainability, because we've decided what we want to code for. There is the refactoring step, and we're building only enough as much as is required, which increases my confidence as a developer. In terms of API first, I said that when you have the mock server, like the testing team can go ahead, probably the UI person can start building the interface based on the mock server or the definition, and teams can work in parallel. There are no blockers, like nobody is waiting for each other to start work. And it fosters a product thinking. In that case, API is the product, because the kind of questions that you ask for the stakeholders is how they're going to use it, what parameters will they use, how will the service look, what will it expose. So it does foster product thinking and better design. I've spoken too much. But yes, so if we were in school and if you got to distinguish between API first and TDD, and if you put this there, you wouldn't get marks as much because there isn't a lot of difference. Like if you see each of these points, essentially, they're doing the same thing. It's just slightly different that probably I will have to have the API defined first. And when I'm actually going ahead to write the code, that's when I'll write the test first and then do the implementation, do the development. So if you look at it from a bird's eye view, both of these do not have as much difference. Both of them want us to focus on the interface, the specification, and what you build, and then come up with the implementation. So the topic, and as to why I chose this topic, was to talk about how different the two are. But having examined both of those approaches, they aren't as different. So the idea that I want to put forth and what I'm proposing is a mix of both of them, which is possible. Like we never have to choose between, let's say, I want to use only Python or I want to use only Java. We're able to take the good parts of each of those things and use it for anything that we like. So then each of these approaches have their own good parts, and they can be used together in tandem. Like I could, when I'm doing a service, we're coming up with an API. I could define the API first, create the mock server, like let teams do their job. And when the development team is actually writing code to build that API, that's when I can do TDD, and that's how I can write code. So essentially, it isn't a versus per se, but both of these approaches have their own good parts, and they can actually be used together. So in case you haven't been using API first, but you're using TDD, you might want to look at how to build using specifications and do that, because it just follows the same principle. And that's what I wanted to convey through this talk. So I'm there on YouTube. I'm actually watching all of the speakers. So in case there are any questions, I'd love to answer, or I'll just be there on the chat. And otherwise, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure just being part of like the speaker lineup, it's yes, it's too big for me. So